Thank you very much, and welcome to Senate Government Affairs. And I see some of my oldest and dearest friends in the room. Thank you for joining us in Government Affairs. And Secretary, will please call the roll.
Vice Chair Ornschall.
Here.
Senator Gokachia. Here. Senator Neal. Here. Senator Hansen. Here. Chair Don Daraloop.
Here, all members are present. Thank you very much. And I'm not going to go through the housekeeping menu because I think we all know it by now, and it is almost 4 o'clock. So I will now open the hearing on Senate Bill 450, and this measure revises provisions relating to the financing of school facilities. And Majority Leader Canizaro, please join us. Thank you. I knew I'd get you here somehow.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. It is good to be here in Senate Government Affairs with all of you. I was trying to find a good reason to come see you, and I think Senate Bill 450 is hopefully that very good reason. So my name is Nicole Canizaro. I represent Senate District 6, which is located in the northwest portion of the Las Vegas Valley. And I'm here to present to you Senate Bill 450, which addresses funding for schools. So by way of background information, Madam Chair, the genesis of this particular bill goes all the way back to 1997, when the legislature allowed school districts to ask for voter approval to issue bonds over a 10-year period, providing certain conditions were met. As this rollover bond authority started to expire, the legislature granted an extension in 2015, allowing the school districts to issue general obligation bonds for an additional period of 10 years without voter approval, subject, of course, to certain findings. Which brings us now in 2021 to Senate Bill 450. This bill simply grants school districts the authority to issue general obligation bonds for a second additional 10-year period under the same conditions set in NRS 350.0201 for the 2015 extension. As with the prior legislation, Senate Bill 450 allows the school districts to use excess revenues from the existing tax rate to fund pay-as-you-go capital improvement projects, including remodeling and other needed facility improvements. This bill ensures that the debt service and reserve funds are not impacted. Since the school districts had bonds approved at different times, they are not on the same schedule, but Clark County School District is coming to the end of its 2015 extension and has a list of much-needed projects ready to go. I should point out that these rollover bonds must be reviewed by the oversight panels for school facilities, which were set up by the legislature in 1997 and continue to serve an important oversight function in Clark and Washoe counties. In addition, rollover bonds are required to be reviewed and approved by the Debt Management Commission in each county. As we know, our school districts have an ongoing and uphill battle to keep their buildings and facilities up to date and in good repair. Anything we can do to help fund these projects without increasing the tax rate is a smart move. Also, this measure ensures that our students and staff members are studying and working in buildings that are safe. Madam Chair, there was one other thing that I did want to address because it has come up in conversations as a result of this bill's introduction, and that was, I would note that this particular piece of legislation, Senate Bill 450, is not a 2/3 requirement bill. I do believe that Mr. Powers from the Legislative Counsel Bureau would be available to answer any questions on that, but I wanted to just sort of delineate for the committee that the reasons for that, both in 1997 and then in 2015, this was not a 2/3 requirement bill. We believe that that remains the case because this has historically been something that has not been subject to those same findings. Not only that, but as I mentioned, this is subject to local approval and also certain findings by those localities, as is the case with other bills that contemplate granting authority to local jurisdictions in order to fund projects. And so that remains the case with this bill. I wanted to just point that out. I know Mr. Powers is available for any questions that would be related to that particular piece of it. This is not within the clear language of the Constitution and is something that historically has not been a 2/3 requirement bill, was not in 2015 when it was approved by this legislature. That concludes my remarks at this point, Madam Chair and committee members, and wanted to thank you for listening to our brief presentation on Senate Bill 450. But with your approval, Madam Chair, in addition, and I do see that Mr. Powers is available for any questions on that last issue. But I would like to turn the microphone over to Jeremy Aguero of Applied Analysis to give some more information, and then he will be followed by Brad Keating from the Clark County School District, Lindsay Anderson of the Washoe County School District, and Mary Przinski representing the rural county school districts. I would urge this committee's support, and of course, happy to answer any questions at the close of those presentations, but those subject matter experts, I think, can also provide some additional background and information for the committee.
Thank you very much. I see Mr. Powers on the screen. Would you like him to weigh in right now before we get started?
Sure, Madam Chair. I just would note that those other individuals I did mention will be able to talk just a little bit more about the bill as well, but he's specifically available to answer any questions
Okay.
on the
Mr. Powers, would you specifically answer the two-thirds question, Bill, and then we'll move on, or the information, and then we'll move on into the bill testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Kevin Powers, General Counsel, LCB Legal Division. As you know, the LCB Legal Division is a nonpartisan legal agency. We do not support or oppose any particular policy, viewpoint, or piece of legislation. Instead, we provide the legislature and its members with objective legal advice and analysis on issues of law, including issues of constitutional law. As the Senate Majority Leader mentioned, the LCB Legal Division has advised the legislature on a two-thirds requirement since it became effective in the Constitution in 1996 when the voters approved it at the 1996 general election. The first session that the two-thirds requirement applied to the legislature, therefore, was the 1997 regular legislative session. During that session, LCB Legal advised the legislature on certain categories of legislation that we believe did not fall within the plain language of the constitutional provision requiring the two-thirds supermajority requirement. That provision requires that the two-thirds applies to a bill that creates, generates, or increases public revenue in any form. One of the categories of bills that the LCB Legal advised the legislature on in 1997 were bills that authorize or enable but do not require a local government or local political subdivision to either impose a tax fee or assessment or increase a tax fee or assessment or issue bonds or other debt instruments. Based on our analysis of plain language, in addition to case law from other jurisdictions and the intent of the two-thirds requirement, which was expressed in the ballot materials and other background material, it was our belief that the provision didn't limit those types of legislation because the legislature, through its bill, was not creating, generating, or increasing the public revenue, but was authorizing a local government or other entity to have the discretion as to whether or not to go forward with that grant of authority and of discretion. There would be the possibility that the local government would not exercise that discretion, and therefore the bill would not create any public revenue in any form. So that delegation of discretionary authority was determined by the LCB to not fit within the plain language. And again, that was supported by case law from other jurisdictions and also by the history and intent of the two-thirds requirement. That contemporaneous interpretation was adopted by the legislature, and that contemporaneous interpretation has been followed consistently by the legislature for the past 2 decades. Based on that interpretation, that consistent, contemporaneous, and long-continued interpretation, the legislature has passed legislation authorizing local governments to impose taxes or fees or issue bonds without meeting the two-thirds requirement by passing that legislation by a constitutional majority, not a two-thirds supermajority. For example, in 2003, the legislature passed Senate Bill number 370, and that authorized counties other than Clark County to impose an additional tax on real property transfers. Some of those counties since 2003 have imposed that tax. That bill was not challenged at any point over the past 2 decades. And under that bill, obviously, public and private rights, duties, and liabilities have been acquired and vested, and again, has not been challenged over that 2-decade period. As the Senate Majority Leader mentioned, during the 2015 legislative session, the legislature again followed that contemporaneous and consistent and long-followed interpretation and determined that a bill similar to SB 450, in that case, there were two bills during the 2015 legislative session that did the same thing and extended that bond period that was originally enacted in 1997. At the time, LCB Legal again advised the legislature that that did not require a 2/3 majority because it was authorizing legislation. It was not requiring the local governments to do any particular activity. Instead, it was authorizing and discretionary in those local governments. That legislation was not challenged. Obviously, then, rights, duties, and liabilities were acquired or vested under that prior legislation. In particular, it authorized local governments to issue general obligation bonds. When local governments issue general obligation bonds, they enter into contracts with the bondholders. And those contracts are protected in certain aspects by the contract clause of the federal and state constitutions. And those contract clause provisions prevent impairment of those contracts under certain circumstances. That brings us to 2019, when the legislature was advised by LCB Legal evolving two bills that did not involve authorizing local governments to impose or increase taxes or to issue bonds. I'm sure most of us are familiar with those bills, but because members of the public may not be, I will go into those really quickly. In 2019, LCB Legal advised the legislature that SB 542 was not subject to this 2/3 requirement. That bill authorized the DMV to continue imposing a $1 technology fee on each transaction. That fee was set to sunset or expire on June 30th, 2020. The 2019 legislation extended that sunset another 2 years. In addition, LCB Legal advised the legislature on SB 551. That bill changed what was going to happen to the modified business tax. The modified business tax was supposed to have a reduction in rate beginning on July 1st, 2019. Before that became effective, the legislature passed SB 551 and kept the rate at its current level. Both those bills were challenged. Both those bills ended up in the Nevada Supreme Court, and that brings us to the most recent decision by the Nevada Supreme Court in Legislature versus Settlemyer, which was issued on May 13th of 2021. In that case, the Nevada Supreme Court, in a case of first impression, gave an interpretation of the 2/3 requirement, which had not been interpreted by the court in the past. The court struck down both SB 542 and SB 551 as violating the 2/3 requirement. The court concluded that because those bills created, generated, or increased public revenue, they should have been subject to the 2/3 requirement. That brings us to the interpretation of the opinion of the Nevada Supreme Court. All court opinions are based on the facts and circumstances that the court addressed in deciding those issues. Courts often also include in their opinions other statements, which are known as dicta. Those are statements explicating reasoning by the court, but as not directly necessary to decide the issue. So there's language in the Supreme Court opinion, Legislature versus Settlemyer, that speaks in broad terms of the scope and application of the 2/3 majority requirement. That opinion, however, did not address a bill that authorizes or enables a local government to pass its own local ordinances or resolutions to increase taxes or fees at the local level or to issue bonds. Those types of legislation were not included in Legislature versus Settlemyer, so the court didn't directly address that type of legislation. So in interpreting the 2/3 requirement in light of Legislature versus Settlemyer and the legislature's long-term and contemporaneous interpretation that the 2/3 requirement doesn't apply to local authorizing legislation, there's a body of case law that courts, including the Nevada Supreme Court, have to consider the consequences of invalidating legislation after a long period of time when there's a contemporaneous and continued construction by the legislature. In particular, in the case of State X-Rail Cardwell versus Glenn, and that's 18 Nevada 34 from the year 1883, There, the Nevada Supreme Court was interpreting another provision in Article 4, Section 18 that dealt with the passage of legislation. What that challenge was involved the signing of the legislation. Under Article 4, Section 18, each piece of legislation passed by the legislature must be signed by the presiding officer of each house, as well as the Secretary of the Senate and the Chief Clerk of the Assembly. From the adoption of the Nevada Constitution in 1864 to when the case was decided in 1883, the Assistant Secretary of the Senate and the Assistant Chief Clerk had also been signing legislation over that 20-plus year period. Because they have been signing legislation and the plain language of the Constitution said it had to be signed by the Secretary of the Senate and the Chief Clerk, but not their assistants, bills were challenged that had been passed during the 1881 session and the 1883 session because they had been signed by the assistants. The Nevada Supreme Court looked at how the legislature had interpreted that constitutional provisions over the prior 2 decades and determined that the legislature's construction was reasonable. And the court concluded that if we are now to declare these bills unconstitutional and sweep away at once all the rights, public and private, which have been acquired under them, we would do an amount of mischief which no man's arithmetic can calculate. This is a proper element of legal judgment on such a subject. We are not to overlook the practice of the legislature or disregard the consequence of doing so. Taking all that together, then, it's the opinion of the LCB Legal Division that because the interpretation of the two-thirds requirement by the legislature since the inception of the two-thirds requirement in 1997 over the past 2 decades has been that the two-thirds requirement does not apply to legislation that authorizes or enables local governments to increase or impose taxes or issue bonds. And that's been a long-standing construction of the legislature, and that rights, duties, and liabilities have all been acquired or vested under that legislation. And those prior pieces of legislation have not been challenged over that 2-decade period. It's the opinion of the LCB Legal Division that SB 450, because it's similar to the legislation that was passed in 2015, does not require a 2/3 majority to pass, but only requires a constitutional majority to pass because of that contemporaneous and long-standing legislative interpretation of the 2/3 requirement. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm certainly open to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Powers, and I am so thrilled that I don't have a history test when this is done because that was way over my head. But I so appreciate that information and that we have confirmed this is not a 2/3 bill. Thank you very much, and we appreciate your time and your expertise today. And we will move on to Mr. Aguero, who is also on the screen. Good afternoon, Mr. Aguero, and thank you for your patience as we started late. And welcome to Senate Government Affairs.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. It's wonderful to see you, and I appreciate the opportunity to be in your committee today. With your permission, I'd like to share my screen and a few slides from a presentation. Is that acceptable?
Yes, please. And Mr. Aguero, could you either move closer to your mic or something? It's not quite right.
Okay, I will try and speak up, and I will try and be closer. So you can let me know if I'm ineffective in communicating loudly enough for the committee members to be able to hear me. Madam Chair, I was asked today just to come and provide a little overview of a presentation report that has been prepared by our firm. Again, my name is Jeremy Aguero for the record. We were retained by the Clark County School District to review and analyze the potential for extending the bond rollover in exactly the form that the majority leader just laid out. A presentation has been provided to you. It is roughly 130 pages long, plus or minus. I have no intention of going through all of that. I just was asked to sort of hit on the executive summary elements at the front end of the presentation, and so I just will hit on a few of those. As I mentioned before, our assignment here was relatively straightforward. It was to look at the district's capital improvement plan and look at the need and potential for extending the bonding authority in this legislative session. Our approach was to analyze a substantial amount of data, including information relative to the history of the bond program, how we got to where we are today, the needs of the Clark County School District as they exist today relative to the schools that we have and the capital programs and potential shortfalls that exist, and then to prepare all of that relative to what legislation might be possible, which is taken the form today based on how LCB crafted it in SB 450 that's before you today. The Nevada Constitution requires the state to provide a uniform system of common schools. There's no surprise there. It specifically says the legislature shall provide for a uniform system of common schools by which a school shall be established and maintained in each school district from Article 11, Section 2 of the Nevada State Constitution. That has been generally construed by any number of agencies, not the least of which is the Nevada State Board of Education, to include the physical environment, the idea that all students deserve to have a place where they can learn, be emotionally safe, intellectually safe, and where they can grow and expand relative to that. Obviously, COVID-19 significantly disrupted Nevada's economy. Governor Sisolak, in his State of the State address, requested an acceleration of capital projects. And so while the core element of what we're here to discuss today is essentially providing additional funding for K-12 education infrastructure, this is also a jobs bill. The intent here is to accelerate the capital programs and essentially bring forward needed capital and essentially get more workers back to work as our economy recovers from the COVID-19 downturn. In the governor's 2021 State of the State address, he said a couple of things that I think are germane to our conversation today. We must look forward to the kind of economy that we want our state that will let our state, prosper in the future and create an opportunity for all. And he went on to say that one of his goals was to fast track billions of dollars of infrastructure projects that haven't been started. He stated, the faster we move these projects from the list of things we are need to the list of things we are doing, the more Nevadans we will get back to work. And that is essentially at the core of the proposal that's being considered for you today. The idea of accelerating capital projects and, again, addressing the shortfall in capital for the Clark County School District and, frankly, other school districts, while at the same time creating those jobs that are woefully needed throughout the state of Nevada. The Clark County School District needs to build and modernize schools. There's the majority leader certainly made that clear, which puts Nevada in a very unique position to both fulfill the state's constitutional mandate and create economic benefits as those set forth by the governor in his State of the State address. At present, the Clark County School District has about $10.8 billion in identified capital needs to build and modernize schools. Over time, of course, this capital program has evolved in many important ways. But today, based on the number of revisions that have gone forward from the 2015 capital plan, there's about $5.4 billion in modernization that's needed for our schools in Clark County. $2.1 billion in new schools and $2 billion in schools that frankly have aged and need to be replaced. Other things like additions to schools, replacement of equipment, and some transportation infrastructure round out the $10.8 billion that's needed today. If we look at the resources that are available to school districts, in this case, the Clark County School District, districts differ in this regard. Those are generally property tax, room tax, real property transfer tax in Clark County, respecting the fact that other school districts have other or different revenues available to them as well. But from a Clark County's perspective, obviously the property tax, as you see there in the dark blue color, is the single largest source of revenue. $6.5 billion will be generated by 2027 from tax revenue sources that are available. Now, obviously, the bond program doesn't extend to 2027, but there will be ending fund balance that essentially grows that will allow the Clark County School District, in this case, to continue to build even after that 2025 program is over. But that will not be extended into perpetuity, and it leaves some of those dollars short. As the majority leader outlined, the bond rollover authority ends in 2025. NRS 350.0201, modified by Senate Bill 207, it permits bonding authority until March 4th of 2025. And that creates a challenge because if we look at the needs as they exist today and we run them forward, the Clark County School District alone will have a deficit in terms of its capital program of roughly $5.3 billion of unmet capital needs by the time we get to the end of the capital program as it exists today. Again, it's $6.7 billion of everything that needs to be constructed with an ending fund balance that will eventually be utilized for all of those capital projects. As I mentioned before, it's not just about building those schools, although that is certainly at the heart of SB 450 and the issue that's before the committee here today. Extending the Clark County School District's bonding authority will also create $2.9 billion in new funding capacity. It will support nearly 24,000 person years of employment. That's one person employed for 1 year, as we like to think about in looking at capital projects, which do not exist into perpetuity. And of that $2.9 billion, roughly $1.3 billion, about 50%, goes to wages and salaries that will be paid to Nevada workers that are working on these specific projects. The extension of the bonds through 2035 will allow for new new general obligation bonds, as well as existing obligation bonds to be completed and some additional PAYGO funding ultimately by the end of the program. As I mentioned previously, $2.9 billion is the incremental amount in additional funding that will be made available by the program that's before you today. How do we get to that? Well, if we look at that $2.9 billion and we convert that into jobs, we convert it into wages and salaries, and we convert it into economic output, we believe that $2.2 billion will generate about $3.5 billion worth of economic output when we include supplier purchases and all those type of things, as well as those construction and development workers going back to their neighborhoods and spending their wages and salaries at restaurants and movie theaters and doctors' offices. We will have 23,982 person years of employment, and as I mentioned, about $1.3 billion worth of labor income. Madam Chair, that's the executive overview of my presentation. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Obviously, there's substantially more information for the committee's consideration in my presentation report. If there are questions, I'm happy to answer them. Other than that, I will leave you with that brief economic overview and stand ready to address any questions from the committee.
Thank you so much, Mr. Aguero. Are you going to stick with us for a minute while Mr. Keating and Ms. Anderson testify?
Madam Chair, I am here until you tell me I can leave.
Perfect. Great answer. That way we can move on, and then we can do all our questions at the end, and I certainly appreciate your time. Hang tight. We'll be back to you. Thank you. And Mr. Keating, welcome to Government Affairs.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Senate Government Affairs. My name is Brad Keating, representing the Clark County School District. Today we're here in support of Senate Bill 450 because the funding it will provide will help build much-needed schools as well as rehabilitate and modernize existing schools throughout the Clark County School Districts. I sit before you today to ask that you support Senate Bill 450 for one simple reason. Our schools are aging and many remain overcrowded. The district currently has more than $10.8 billion of identified near-term school construction project needs. Further, 64% of schools in CCSD are a minimum of 20 years old. Over 41% of schools have reached or exceeded 100% capacity. These needs will continue to compound in the coming years. Nearly 100 schools between 10 and 19 years old will require predictable but significant capital investments in the next 10 years. Majority Leader Canizaro outlined what SB 450 does. To reiterate, it allows school districts across the state to pledge their current property tax rate for the repayment of additional bonds after the 2025 sunset. There would be no increase in the current tax rate. The proposed change simply stops the current district's capital rate from decreasing as bonds are paid off well into the future. So, how does CCSD intend to use these funds should the legislature approve Senate Bill 450? Extensive research and deliberations by and between the CCSD Board of School Trustees and Bond Oversight Council have pointed to several key considerations. First, available seats. As evidenced by CCSD's heat maps provided to this committee, you will notice that there are very few available seats that we have that are not located in areas where dense student population and growth currently exist. Moreover, CCSD currently has 2,456 portable classrooms. The useful life of a portable classroom is 20 years. We currently have 651 portables that are 20 years or older, and 30 portables that were built before 1969. A strategy to utilize these available seats would not resolve capacity challenges, would require massive rezoning and would result in long commutes, in some cases to rural areas such as Laughlin. This is simply an impracticable solution and is the reason that the district has focused on the limited targeted school construction in high-needs areas. Second, and of equal, if not greater importance, is the modernization and rehabilitation of existing schools. Known capital replacement needs exceed the district's revenue-generating capacity by $5.3 billion. This number includes general rehabilitation and renovation of aging education infrastructure, as well as major modernization of older schools, specialized programs to provide equity for all schools, such as science labs, improved security for schools, and technology upgrades. Modern education requires modern technology. Unfortunately, older schools in certain areas have yet to be fully retrofitted due to the infrastructure limitations. This creates gaps in access to digital learning as well as assessment and accountability programs. Like everyone, CCSD has experienced significant budget cuts during the economic downturns. We cut roughly 20% of our budgets, which resulted in a reduction of force. We did our best to avoid cutting things that directly impacted the classroom. To preserve teaching positions, the district reduced custodians and preventative maintenance staff. These reductions resulted in fewer people doing more work and caused a much larger backlog of deferred maintenance. SB 450 will not only allow the district to complete this work, but also accelerate project timelines. CCSD will immediately add projects to the development pipeline and increase construction output. SB 450's central purpose is to ensure that our teachers and staff have a safe and effective environment to teach and that our students have a safe and effective environment to learn. That said, SB 450 is also a jobs bill. Extension of the bond rollover will free up approximately $3 billion in additional resources, directly and indirectly, which will support 24,000 person years of employment and generate $1.3 billion in wages and salaries for Nevada's workers. I want to thank the majority leader for bringing SB 450 forward, and I respectfully ask this committee to think of the students in the Clark County School District and the 11 other districts across the state. Each of those children deserves an opportunity to learn in an educational environment that is safe and sound. Mr. Jason Gowdy, CCSD's Chief Financial Officer, is here to answer any technical questions that may come up as we move forward in the conversation, and I also have Mr. Jeff Wagner, our Chief of Facilities, on the line to answer questions regarding our capital improvement program. Again, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, and if you'll sit tight, we're going to move on, and then we'll do questions all at once. Ms. Anderson, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lindsay Anderson on behalf of the Washoe County School District, and it's nice to be in your committee. If I remember, we used to have Senate Education in this room many sessions ago, so feels comfortable here. The Washoe County School District's journey to properly address school construction needs has been long and winding. Prior to 2016, and unlike other districts across the state, our only source of funding for school construction was this rollover bond revenue. In Washoe, the rate is $38.85 per $100 of assessed valuation. A failed attempt to increase revenue for school construction funds at the legislature in 2013 led to legislation sponsored by Senator Debbie Smith in 2015 to allow community stakeholders to craft a ballot question and allow the voters to decide on an additional revenue stream for this purpose. Through the work of the Public Schools Overcrowding and Repair Needs Committee and then the Save Our Schools Initiative, WC1 in 2016 was approved by voters to increase sales tax in Washoe County to fund additional school construction projects. This sales tax, along with the property tax rate, have become a comprehensive combination of funds that support a robust capital program averaging over $100 million in annual local investments that is addressing both new construction as well as refurbishing our existing aging schools. As you may know, schools in Washoe County are old, with the average age of our schools over 43 years old. These aging systems need to be repaired and replaced to ensure adequate learning environments. As we build new schools, keeping our older schools on a level playing field is important to fulfill our commitment to equity and access for our students. Currently, the rollover bond proceeds pay for approximately half of our funds to school modernization and revitalization projects. Losing access to these funds would significantly impact our ability to keep up with these projects. Our current 10-year projection for school CIP totals more than $1 billion. Compounded by the fact that current construction escalation costs are alarming and risk negatively impacting our ability to complete these projects with the current available revenue. Loss of the property tax revenue stream would decimate our ability to meet the needs of this rapidly growing community. Examples of our renewal and revitalization projects include an average of $50 million a year of district-wide renewal projects, such as roofing, HVAC, and other existing equipment replacements. New schools in primarily areas of enrollment growth, particularly the North Valleys and Spanish Springs, and major expansions or renovations to existing schools at all levels, including possible expansions to Billinghurst, Mendive, and Shaw Middle Schools. Our school construction program has a tremendous amount of oversight between our Capital Funding Protection Committee, Oversight Panel on School Facilities, and the Board of Trustees. Our amazing capital projects team has a proven track record of delivering projects in full compliance with Nevada law and to our educational specifications on time and on budget for the benefit of our students. We ask that this committee acknowledge this track record and the clear need to continue investing in school construction so the current kindergartners, of which I have one, the class of 2032, can be assured a school facility to meet their needs going forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, and we remember that kindergartner when he was born. All righty, Ms. Przinski, were you going to make some comments? Please, welcome to Government Affairs.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be here. For the record, my name is Mary Przinski, and today I'm here to represent the rural school districts as far as SB 450 is concerned. So thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. You've heard about our urban districts and the age of their schools and the overcrowding and everything else that they're dealing with. Well, the rural districts have some very old schools as well, and these rollover bonds that 10 of our 15 school districts are engaged in is very important for building maintenance. And talking with Marty Johnson, who helps a lot of the rural districts with their bonding, he identified the 10 of the 15 rural districts that have rollover bonds now, and they are following: Carson City, Churchill, Douglas, Humboldt, Lyon, Mineral, Nye, Pershing, Story, and White Pine. And when I talk with the superintendents of these districts, of course, the rollover money has been used for maintenance, which is really important in the rural districts because you have to consider the oldest continuously operating schools are in the rural districts. White Pine, David Norman Elementary School was built in 1909, still has students been in operation for 112 years, and White Pine Middle School's been in operation for 108 years. It was built in 1909. So this bond situation has been very important to them to keep these buildings alive and able, good for kids to still be there and continue their education there. Humboldt County School District also has relied on their rollover bond. The average age of the buildings in Humboldt County is 59 years. They have a rather small bond, 13.5 cents, but it's enough for them to be able to do some critical building maintenance, although not enough, of course, to support new construction. Pershing County reports the same thing, that their bond rollover is not enough for new construction, but it's enabled them to do their maintenance work over the years, and it's very important to them. And the superintendent there also noted that the last time they allowed a bond to sunset, it was no problem for the county because they just picked up the money and the taxpayer never saw the difference. Churchill County also reports doing a lot of the safety projects with their rollover money. Carson City, the same way. Safety features and elimination of portables is what they've used their money for. So the rollover bond is not just important for the urban districts, it's very important for our rural districts, and we hope that you will give this bill serious consideration, and we want to thank the sponsors for bringing it forward and also for you listening to it today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Keating, because you're the first guy at the table, do we have anybody else in the queue, or is that it now? Okay. All right. Committee questions, please. Senator Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I had a question. I guess it'd be to Mr. Geddes. That Gowdy?
Mr. Gowdy, are you, there you are. Mr. Gowdy.
All right, so I had a question. So I was, so the April 15th, 2021 bond meeting, bond oversight committee meeting, they said that they were going to do a bond offering statement of $200 million. What was expected to be leveraged from that amount?
You are.
Jason Gotti
there
for the
you,
record.
there
Sorry,
you
no,
are. Thank you.
I didn't click it properly. I'm not sure I understand the question. So the $200 million that was authorized, when you say leveraged, could you just provide me a little bit more clarity so I can
So
make sure I answer the question properly?
in the meeting, they had said they were going to do another bond offering statement and for about $200 million. This was the April 15th, 2021 meeting.
Okay, thank you. Jason Gotti for the record. Correct. So essentially, the district issues around $440 to $450 million each year in bonds. We do it in two tranches. We typically do a tranche somewhere around April, May, June timeframe, and then we do a second tranche in the fall, which is somewhere usually around the October or November timeframe, based off need. We do that because we spend approximately $400 million a year on our construction projects, and then also approximately $30 to $40 million on medium-term bonds, which really primarily fund our buses, White Fleet, and some other items. And so those would be what I would call a standard bond issue that we go out to market. We utilize a third-party firm to issue bonds and receive the proceeds, which then fund all of the different projects that are in our CIP version 4, which is presented to the Bond Oversight Committee, which would have been presented at that meeting. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Madam Chair? Please. So also in the April 15, 2021 meeting, it said that there was going to be an expenditure of $413 million on a modernization project, but it didn't say what that project was or which school that applied to.
Thank you. Jason Getty for the record. We do have Jeff Wagner on our on the call as well. He is our Director of Facilities, and he would be better suited to answer that question if it pleases the...
Mr. Wagner, please, did you hear the question? Or do you need to
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, please, go ahead, sir.
Jeff Wagner for the record, Chief of Facilities. The $413 million approximately that is allocated towards renovation projects has not been specifically identified because we have currently 14 projects that are in assessment and another 17 major modernizations that are undergoing assessment to properly scope those projects. Those 32 projects, or 31 projects rather, will eventually exhaust all of that $413 million. And if the committee likes, I can run down a list of those projects.
No need. I would like it, though, after the committee meeting. So, and then...
I will ensure that you do receive it.
Thank you. And then one final question. So in the actual language of 450, the testimony has been that the schools are aging, but the bill in no way, shape, or form prioritizes or ranks older schools. It does not even give a priority to say that if you're 25 years or older, then the bond money should be used for those schools. And so why is that a missing language in here? This debate around older schools has been going on since the 98 bond, specifically that I'm aware of in my history in CCSD in Clark County. So I wanted to know why we don't at least have the ranking so that older schools are taken care of first before the newer schools, which we supposedly built to be more energy efficient and to have less maintenance.
Mr. Wagner.
So our bond proceeds are are prioritized by what we call a facility condition index. We have identified 51 projects approximately if these funds were approved. Of those, 13 are new schools, and approximately 30 of those projects are replacement schools and have been identified based on their need. The FCI, or Facility Condition Index, is done through an assessment that is done at each campus every 5 years to identify the total need of that campus. So all of the money is prioritized using a very objective system. I can, in addition, provide that list of schools that have been identified as needing immediate attention.
Go ahead, please.
No, thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, it's just a matter of putting in a statute, right? It talks about the 5-year scaling, but it's a 10-year bond that we keep doing an additional rollover. So why not just put in a statute if that's really the public policy goal?
Thank you very much. So one of the questions I have in tandem to Senator Neal's question is, can you give us, I don't know, 5 examples of schools that would be on this list from maybe sort of the 5 regions around town or even the 4 quarters of town? If you could just sort of tell us what 5 or 6 schools are, maybe that would help us identify what we're looking for.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. I'll try to make it as geographically diverse as possible. Von Tobel Middle School is being considered for replacement. Red Rock Elementary School is being considered for replacement. Gwynn Middle School is being considered for full replacement. Cashman Middle School in the middle of the valley is being considered for replacement. Bennett Elementary School in Laughlin is being considered for a replacement. Would you like me to name others?
No, that's fine. What about schools like, and I don't know which ones have additional pieces, but Matt Kelly, Mabel Holdgard, Decker, I think George Harris is being done right now. Just some of those schools that I know have been around for decades.
Yeah, so we've been very fortunate to have the 2015 capital program to address some of those campuses. In fact, Mabel Hogarth is currently under construction in a phased replacement capacity. It will be complete here in a few weeks and be welcoming students in the fall. As you mentioned, Harris is under construction. Again, these funds are prioritized based on a facility condition index, which takes into account work that has been done to the school over its life, the current need at the school, and how much that would cost in regards to replacing the school. So just because a school is not on the list for replacement doesn't mean that it has not or will not receive modernization work. And major modernization work would consist of major system replacements such as HVAC, roof, asphalt systems, things of that nature. So I am happy to get you facility condition index information on any particular school. I do not have that at my fingertips, but happy to provide that to you if you like.
Thank you very much. And following up with that, I think the angst that we have is that we are giving the okay for funding in the legislature, and then sometimes there isn't accountability or ways to chase the project to know if it actually happened. So for example, Helen J. Stewart, and some of those that we have are medically fragile or special needs students in, are those on the list? And how will there be accountability for what's on that list? And I don't know if Mr. Keating, you want to answer that since you're here?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brad Keating for the record. I did want to note, I just sent an email to the committee as well. Yesterday we submitted some exhibits and it just doesn't look like they're up at the moment. So we will work on fixing that. It provides the entire list of all the schools we would be working on. Helen J. Stewart is included in that list of schools, so I wanted to point that out. And I think it's important, I hate to pass it off, but I'd like for one of the team at CCSD to just walk you through the public process of, we've provided this list to you, and we did it in 2015 when we initially came to the legislature asking for this. and they can talk through the shovel-ready projects, how the decisions were made, and how many projects we completed from that exact list, so that you have, you're comfortable in moving forward in the future.
Okay, yes, would you make sure that we get that? Because I know our committee manager, and we do not have that at present. So, and Mr. Aguero, if you're listening, we'd love your presentation as well, sent if you could. So, thank you. Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Oh, boy, hard to know where to start. 8 days left, and we're talking, if I'm doing the math right, somewhere between $5 and $10 billion in possible costs. And the initial start of this was based on a bond approval by the voters. In that, there was also a 10-year extension. And now we're going to add an additional 10-year extension without going back to the voters, essentially bypassing the original arrangement that they had agreed to when it was on the ballot. So, you know, if we would have had this the first week and we could have gone to our voters and talked to them, I mean, this is huge. And I'm certain that people of the talent of Mr. Aguero and the others that have presented this had to be aware of this prior to needing to become an emergency measure with a week and 3 days left in the session. So just seems kind of disingenuous to bring this at the last minute, to bypass the voters, and to expect us to just sort of say, well, it's for the good of everybody because now we're going to have this jobs bill. Anybody with even the most basic fundamental understanding of economics knows that if you spend $5 or $10 billion, no matter how you spend it, it's going to be a fantastic job opportunity for somebody somewhere. This simply is rediverting monies from what could have been done in the private sector. Now, I would suspect, with people of the talent that you have and this full court press you have, that this would also probably sell very easily to the voters. So I'm exceptionally uncomfortable with the idea that here at the last week of the session, when we're ramming and jamming everything through, that we're going to bring an emergency measure that deals with 5 to 10 billion with, as both of the earlier questioners mentioned, concerns over the amount of metrics in place to assure that it's spent well. I also know, Madam Chair, that in Northern Nevada, the costs for high schools and elementary schools have absolutely gone through the roof, literally. The cost to build the most newest high school was like 5 times over what the 10-year one was previously. So it's just a lot of factors involved in this. And so I'm very uncomfortable. I'm glad to help the schools, and I agree there's a lot of aging schools with all sorts of problems. I'm very uncomfortable with the way this is being presented and the fact that we are essentially reneging on an agreement that the people that supported those bond measures understood at the time they voted on it. So no questions in that, just merely a statement. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So there's no question in there, Mr.
No question, but anybody wants to jump on it, hey, fine and
Senator
dandy.
Hansen, I would tell you that we're not reneging, and you're right, there are older schools, and our children are very important, of which 8 you have, and many grandchildren plus that, and I think our children deserve everything that we can possibly do for them. And so I would just add that to your comments, if you would allow me to editorialize, and thank you very much.
Well, I would gladly, but I also point out that I agree with that. I don't think there's anybody in the room that
Perfect,
wants to disagree that we want what's best for our children. My
Thank you.
8th child just graduated yesterday from college.
See,
so-
there you go.
Right,
Those
so I'm
public school
editorial.
kids deserve the
And I
best.
paid my taxes and supported things all the way along. I just think that, I'm not saying reneging, but if we pass this, we are changing what the voters understood at the time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Gokachia, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll try and get kind of back towards the center here a little bit. I'm assuming that because we did, in fact, extend this in 2015, that most of these bonds we've got in place today have, in fact, been rolled over. I haven't seen, bond notices or a new bond voted in quite some time, so I was just curious about that. So I'm assuming a lot of them have been pre-2015 when they were actually issued or actually stood the ballot question, and maybe even longer than that. So that is one question. And then the pay-as-you-go aspect of this, is this not new? I mean, typically bonds were for school construction, and we haven't been allowing it, And the only other point I'll make is it does concern me a little bit, is because Elko County for 20 years had a pay-as-you-go that the voters rejected last fall. So I'm very nervous about that, and I know we're all even the people in Elko County are very concerned about that, and they're talking about trying to bring it back again for another ballot question. They just didn't really pursue it as they needed to. But in one sense, I do agree with, this is a voter decision.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Aguero, can you address some of that, please?
Madam Chair, I'll try to do it the best that I can. I mean, the simple answer to Senator Gocochia's comment is that he's right. There are different sequences relative to those bonds. And I think, as Mr. Gowdy mentioned earlier, at the Clark County School District, they're issuing bonds every single year to fund that program. I mean, obviously, taking advantage of remarkably low interest rates today and trying to accelerate projects is something that is very beneficial, not just to the Clark County, not just to urban school districts, but also to rural school districts. In terms of Senator Gocochia, your questions relative, or your comments relative to Elko County and its PAYGO program, in terms of what's there, obviously, I share your concerns relative to that and school capital, but I really think it points to the challenges that we're talking about here today. As those bond rollovers start to roll off, whether they're PAYGO or whether they're for debt rates, they're going to be absorbed by other municipalities, which will make it more difficult for us to fund as a state K through 12 education. Or because of the property tax abatements, they'll be lost as a result of the gap year challenge if that rate is not imposed. So the points that you make are all excellent ones. I don't think that any of those are necessarily mutually exclusive with the analysis that has been provided, but I think they simply underscore the need to consider the capital and take a very long-term view at this, because our capital needs as a state are not going to go away anytime soon. So hopefully that at least addressed some of what the senator mentioned. If there's other questions, Madam Chair, I'm happy to try and address those.
Thank you very much. Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Aguero. Thank you, Madam Chair. We're just, like I say, have to give it some thought. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vice Chair Earnshaw?
Actually, I don't have any questions right now, Chair. Thank you.
Senator Neal, I can just see it. It's coming right. Go.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just really quickly, in the bill in Section 1, Sub C, where it's putting in NRS 350.020, that may be transferred. It's the may in particular. I was trying to figure out about that language, because that's new. I've seen the may in the 350.021 language, which is that pay as you go, but I haven't seen the may for the 350.0.20. It doesn't have that in the existing statutory language. So I wanted to understand the operational effect of that may in that section. So that would probably be Mr.
Mr. Keating?
Keating.
Is that you? Is that your
Somebody.
question?
Brad Keating, for the record. Thank you. That is probably a legal question, if legal is available to answer it. The only thing I would state, I think for the record, is that the current bill before you is an exact replica of the bill that was passed in 2015. So the language is the exact same as the 2015 Senate Bill 207 bill, other than the effective date. It changes from 2025 to 2035. So that language was in that bill in 2015.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but it's not actually in the statute. When you pull up the statute, like that actual wording is not there. So it should have been, right, from 2015. Because that's why I asked the question. I asked the question because I looked at the statutory provisions, trying to figure out if they're the deviations. So, I mean, I'll leave it there. But can you at least talk about what the CARES dollars that were spent on operational versus capital dollars? So you guys got an influx of CARES dollars, so what went to operation expenses and what were you allowed to do for capital improvement around HVAC, carpet, or other filtering or other things that you were eligible?
Jason Gowdy for the record. So we have received around $85 million in what we call ESSER 1 funding. And I don't have the exact breakdown. We're actually putting that together because we're going through our final grant draws to essentially finally spend all that money. And a lot of that was based off of connectivity, devices, and distance learning education programming that was done over the last year and a half as we were trying to work through the COVID process. There was PPE was also another large expenditure. And I know that we will have a document this week that I can provide to this committee as well that would highlight how that $85 million was spent. In ESSER 2, that's an allocation of just around $347 million, of which we have not yet identified our full strategic objectives around how to spend that money. ESSER 3 is approximately $750 million, and that's the third piece. We still haven't got the final allocation from the state on that. We're still working through that. We will be working with within our group as well as with community groups and the board in identifying the strategic objectives on how to best utilize that funding to ensure that we meet the needs of the students and of the community. And so we don't have a breakdown right now of how that breaks down between operational and the maintenance or the building capacities, but there is language within those bills at the federal level that do allow us to spend monies on certain things like HVAC and carpet to ensure a health and safety environment for the children. And as we have that information, we'd be happy to provide that to this committee and others as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. So last time in 2015, Mr. Keating, do you or one of your team have the amount of what happened during that time? Can you kind of give us a little bit of an overview? Is that Mr. Wagner or is that you? Mr. Wagner, could you kind of give us an overview of what happened since 2015?
Madam Chair, yes, I joined the district late 2015, so I don't have intimate knowledge of what occurred before that time. However, in 2015, the state passed the $4.1 billion bonding capacity. If you're specifically referring to the shovel-ready list, that list identified 59 total projects and $850 million approximately in spend. To date, 12 new schools were identified on that list. All 12 have been completed. We've also completed 3 additional schools. 2 replacement schools were identified on that list, and those 2 projects have been completed. 2 major renovation projects were identified on that list. Both of those have been completed. 43 additions were identified on the list to address capacity within elementary schools. They were addressed in the following way. 25 of the additions on the list were completed and are open to students. 12 additional additions not on the list but needed to relieve overcrowding have been completed as of today. 1 addition is scheduled for 2023. 5 of the schools that were calling for additions, the decision was made to replace the entire school due to the condition of the school at the time that we started construction. The capacity needs of the 12 remaining schools that did not receive additions to date have been addressed in the following way. Treem Elementary School received enrollment relief due to Josh Stevens, which was a new school that we built in the 2015 capital program. Wayne Tanaka Elementary School received relief due to rezoning. Jim Thorpe received enrollment relief due to Josh Stevens as well. Again, a new school built with the 2015 capital program. Mark Fine Elementary School received enrollment relief from Beverly Mathis, which was a new school built under the 2015 program. Marion Earl received enrollment relief from Sandra Abson, a new school built in the 2015 capital program. John Vanderberg will receive relief this coming fall from Hannah Brown Elementary School, which is opening this fall. Evelyn Stuckey received enrollment relief from the new school Dennis Ortwine, opened several years ago. Ruth Fife was identified to receive an addition. However, through rezoning to Griffith, a new school, Twin Lakes, a phased replacement, and Wasden, a school that received a building addition, we were able to close that school down. It sits immediately adjacent to a major interstate here in Las Vegas, and there were concerns about air quality. So that campus will be shut down. 4 schools on the list of 59 total projects have not been addressed. Off that list, those comprise of Helen Jedstrip, currently at 112% of capacity, Bay Galloway currently at 107% of capacity, Estes McDonald currently at 119% of capacity, and Martin Luther King currently at 101% of capacity. In addition to the projects that I just mentioned, we have completed nearly $2 billion in improvement projects that represent the project on this list as well as others, and allocated nearly $3.7 billion to projects, including both modernization, replacements, and new schools. The $400 million left over between the 3.7 and the 4.1 bonding capacity is being dedicated to comprehensive renovation projects as outlined in revision 4 to our 2015 capital improvement program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. That was a lot of information, and I appreciate it. And I probably can give you the pre-2015 history lesson. Thank you very much. Additional questions from the committee? All right. With that, then, Mr. Keating and Senator Canizero, do you have, or do you want me to just go to public support? Okay. We will be going to public support and opposition and neutral. And so we'll start here in the room. If we have anybody in support in the room, if you would like to come forward. We have people. Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Daly. Go ahead, please, when you're ready.
Madam Chair, Chris Daly, Nevada State Education Association, here in support of SB 450 to allow school districts in Nevada to roll over bonds to deliver critical capital projects. Every day, thousands of Nevada educators, tens of thousands of Nevada students go to school in facilities that are overcrowded, out of date, and potentially hazardous. These are serious facility needs. There are serious facility needs across the state in Clark and Washoe counties, as well as rural school districts. The quality of school facilities has a direct impact on the quality of education and also is a foundational element in fostering a positive school climate. Sending students to a dilapidated school building sends them the wrong message about the value of education and their value as young people in our state. Meanwhile, educators working in overcrowded and substandard facilities receive a similar message, impacting educator morale and retention. This is why NSCA partnered with education stakeholders in Washoe County to help pass IP1 in 2016, and why we support SB 450 to give school districts who have voter-authorized bonding the flexibility they need to address their facility needs. SB 450 addresses these issues while also creating good construction jobs and boosting the state's economy. We hope you support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Paige Barnes. I'm with Crowley and Fraudo Public Affairs, here today representing the Nevada Association of School Boards. We represent all trustees in the state, but I am here today to provide specific information about rural districts, as you've already heard information from Washoe and Clark County school districts. Due to their size, rural districts have small budgets, which make large expenditures close to impossible. Bonding allows for rural districts to make capital improvements and fund construction projects. Many of our rural districts have old buildings, some dating back to the early 1900s. They must make improvements such as AC units and building leaks to ensure safe and supportive learning environments. Some of our districts have used the bonds for larger projects, such as a new gym in White Pine School District built just a couple of years ago. SB 450 allows for a smooth continuation of current practice. Bonding authority is crucial to support districts across our state and, most importantly, our students. As representatives of our communities and our voters, we are here in strong support of SB 450 and encourage you to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, please.
Hello, and thank you, Committee Chairwoman. Dondero Loop. For the record, my name is Dr. Brenda Pearson, and I'm here representing the Clark County Education Association. CCA is in support of Senate Bill 450. As we speak, there are approximately 12,000 classroom portables in CCSD campuses housing 57,000 students. Portables were not meant to be a permanent school structure, but a short-term solution. In fact, in 2019-20, CCSD elementary schools were at 104% of their capacity. Middle schools were at 93% capacity, and high schools were at 111% of their capacity. Within Senate Bill 450, the 10-year extension will allow Clark County School District the opportunity to build new schools to help relieve overcrowding in an effort to reach class size reduction goals. More importantly, it will allow CCSD to modernize a number of schools so students can have access to up-to-date facilities and opportunities. Similar language was passed in 2015 through Senate Bill 207. This bill simply extends this time that districts can bond with school construction. Additionally, this bill will not raise taxes, but will allow us to build more schools. We appreciate the effort of this committee and all stakeholders involved in bringing SB 450 forth. We look forward to working with CCSD on how to strategically utilize this bond money to ensure our students are always put forth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Alexis Motorix with the Nevada Chapter Associated General Contractors, representing the commercial construction industry in Northern Nevada. We are here in support of SB 450. This is a necessary tool to keep pace with growth and adequately invest in school construction and improvements in Washoe County. And not only that, but this will create thousands of prevailing wage jobs that will help us recover from the economic havoc caused by COVID-19. We urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Nicole Rourke, representing the City of Henderson. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a statement of our support on SB 450. We are in favor of the issuance of general obligation bonds for the construction of new schools and maintenance and repair of existing schools, which will provide 3 elementary schools, 1 high school, and 1 replacement school in the City of Henderson. Over the next 3 years, Southern Nevada is expected to add approximately 100,000 new residents on our way to 3 million residents by 2045. The City of Henderson had more than 150 construction projects underway last year, and we are already back to pre-pandemic levels this year. In fact, West Henderson is booming and is becoming a first-class business hub for the region. But as we strive to diversify our economy by attracting more and better-paying jobs to the area like Google, Amazon, Haas Automation, and others, education is a critical consideration in a company's decision to invest in our community. It is also a key factor in attracting and retaining a highly skilled employee base. In previous times of high growth, Clark County has struggled to keep up with student enrollment, resulting in overcrowded schools and year-round schedules. The few schools built in recent years only serve to catch up to current enrollment numbers. It is imperative that we prepare now for our future students and invest in our existing schools with upgrades to ensure equity for all students, not just those who live in our newest communities. This year has shown us more than ever the value of the physical school building and the important role it plays in all of our lives. The City of Henderson looks forward to partnering with the state to prepare for a time of exciting growth and to support education in Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Government Affairs, Mr. Vanderpool.
Good afternoon, Chair Dondero Loop and members of the Senate Committee on Government Affairs. Nick Vanderpool with Capital Partners here today representing the Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce. The Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce is in full support of Senate Bill 450, as this strategy will allow the Washoe County School District the ability to reinvest revenue streams into much-needed ongoing capital improvement projects. We would like to thank the bipartisan support from senators and members of the Assembly that sponsored this measure. We recognize that this bill aligns with Senate Bill 207 from 2015, which provided the district the same latitude. We have seen the benefits from that measure even today. The Chamber recognizes that our schools need all the tools that they can use to meet the growing needs of our student community. We thank you for your time and urge your support of this measure.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, Chair and committee members. For the record, my name is Ariel Edwards on behalf of the City of North Las Vegas. We are in support of Senate Bill 450 and believe that this will provide jobs and improve the school buildings in our city of North Las Vegas and ensure that the quality of education continues to be a priority for all students. We would like to thank the bill sponsor for bringing this bill forward and urge its support and passage. Thank you all for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in the room in support? Broadcasting, we'll go to Zoom, and is Mr. Warden on Zoom? Right name?
Chair, I will call for him. Mr. Warden, are
There
you
he
the last
is.
3 digits of 505?
I see him on Zoom broadcasting.
I'm here.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Please go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Government Affairs Committee. Hey, Tom Warden with the Howard Hughes Corporation, but today I'm also speaking from the vantage.
Mr. Warden, excuse me, this is broadcast. Can you start over? You were muted.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Government Affairs Committee. Tom Warden with the Howard Hughes Corporation. But today I'm also speaking from the vantage point as a member of the School Community Partnership Council. I've served on that council for, more than 20 years now. And during that time, I think it's fair to say the other members of that council, through the great programs that they have, such as Focus School Project and others, we've really come to appreciate the pressing need for capital improvements and capital funding to either refurbish or rebuild many of the aging schools across southern Nevada. Those two necessities, coupled with the need to also construct new schools in our growing community, are the reasons that we're in strong support of SB 450. We also agree with Jeremy's analysis that the jobs creation will be impressive with 450. So to you, Madam Chair, and the entire committee, as well as Majority Leader Canizaro and all the primary sponsors, you have our thanks. You certainly have our support, and most definitely, you have our appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and thank you for joining us here in Government Affairs today. Good to see you. So broadcasting, is there anyone else in support on Zoom?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. If you would like to support SB 450, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to provide support of SB 450, please press *9 now. Caller with the last 3 digits of 110. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last 3 digits of 110. Please press *6 now to unmute yourself. Thank you. Please begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Dundar Loop and the members of the committee. For the record, Hugh Anderson, A-N-D-E-R-S-O-N, Managing Director for Hightower Las Vegas and Chairman of the Vegas Chamber's Government Affairs Committee. The Vegas Chamber is in support of Senate Bill 450 because it will help fill a critical need in our community, access to quality school facilities. The Chamber has a long history of supporting ballot questions and legislative measures to allow for the construction and renovation of K-12 education facilities. The reality is that our community continues to grow at a rapid pace, and we must keep up with the demand for schools. We also support this bill because it will help support class size reduction efforts within the Clark County School District. As we heard from CCSD, there is approximately $10.8 billion in construction needs. This figure will only continue to grow in the next few years as our student population continues to expand. Many of the schools built in the late 90s and early 2000s will need to be renovated in order to meet the technological demands that students and parents want to have in the classroom. From the taxpayer's perspective, the Chamber believes CCSD has done an excellent job in managing these bond dollars and has built quality education facilities for the benefit of our students. This bill would also allow for other resources that are currently committed to construction to be reallocated to other programming needs within the school district. Again, these reallocations of dollars will have a direct positive impact on the students in the class. Thank you, Chair Dondero Loop and members of the committee for your time. We urge your support and passage of this bill.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 092. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Dondera Loop, Vice Chair Orenshaw, and members of the Senate Committee on Government Affairs. For the record, my name is Alex Bybee, representing Communities and Schools of Nevada, ALEX, BYBEE, and we offer our organization's support for Senate Bill 450. As a nonprofit committed to eliminating barriers to student success for our students living in poverty and students experiencing other adverse circumstances, we see firsthand how more equitable investment, whether in capital needs or operating expenses, can make the difference in a student's academic achievement, both in their learning environments and the programs that support their success. Our organization is offering testimony and support to advocate for passage of Senate Bill 450 for 3 primary reasons, which are highlighted in the testimony that we've submitted for the record. We thank the sponsors of this measure for leading the effort to ensure our school districts have the resources they need to responsibly manage the construction and repair of our state schools. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 090. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last 3 digits of 090. We can see that you are unmuted.
Hi, good evening. Sorry, Chair. My own phone was muted. For the record, Chelsea Capurro here on behalf of the Nevada Association of School Administrators, CHELSEA-CAPURRO. NAPA is in support of SB 450 and extending the ability for Nevada school districts to roll over their bonds for capital projects for an additional 10 years. We think this legislation will help with overcrowding and make sure that Nevada students have access to a quality education. We hope that you support and pass sponsors on bringing this forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 505. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the Senate Committee on Government Affairs. For the record, my name is Peter Guzman, President of the Latin Chamber of Commerce, Nevada. SB 450 is a critical part of improving the quality of education for our students. Just take a quick drive. I ask you, I implore you to. Take a quick drive through East Las Vegas and you will realize how much our schools are in need of modernization. Some of the schools simply cannot be repaired. They need replacement. I also want to say that, we're in favor of this bill because it will create construction jobs, which are good for our community and certainly needed more than ever. They will have a positive economic impact throughout our community. I'm going to go off script on my notes here real quick because of what I wrote down, because of some of the testimony, some of the presentation that I heard. I find it disgusting that portables have now become so many young kids' classrooms. Portables are not supposed to be permanent. When construction happens, you see portable toilets, but they go away after the construction is built. They don't become the residential bathroom or commercial bathroom. Than that, and it's time to just pass this so that we can get under construction and get kids in a better environment for their education. In summary, SB 450 is a win-win for all of our students and our community. We are proud at the Latin Chamber of Commerce to support this bill, and we urge your support.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 945. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
This is Charlie Melvin for the record, CHARLIEMELVIN, Director at Power to Parent. I'm calling in our support of SB 450. We absolutely support investing these funds into our school districts to construct new schools and to improve and update older schools, essentially investing in improving education and safety for our children all over Nevada. Thank you to those who have worked together on this bill, and we encourage members of this committee to vote in favor of this bill. And also thank you to Mr. Guzman for his comments about the portables. We absolutely agree with that as well. And thank you for all those who are concerned about our children. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 918. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Dondera Loop, Vice Chair Orenshaw, and members of the Senate Government Affairs Committee. My name is Jeff Horn, Jeffhorn, and I am the Deputy Executive Director with the Clark County Association of School Administrators and Professional Technical Employees. Our organization represents approximately 1,300 Clark County School District administrators, of which 98% of those eligible to join our association are current members. We would like to voice our support for Senate Bill 450. As a former principal and school associate superintendent, I am well aware of the need to build, modernize, and replace schools and systems which are in constant need of repair and have far exceeded its expected lifespan. Each year, like clockwork, HVAC systems go down in 100-degree plus weather, sometimes forcing evacuations of schools. Older buildings that have served their lifespan are routinely unable to be repaired due to lack of available parts or equipment. Students, parents, and community members grow impatient as older, overcrowded, and inefficient buildings are serviced over and over again in hopes that permanent fixes are on their way. Senate Bill 450 will provide school board trustees the flexibility to approve bonds in order to rectify these deficiencies. This will allow students, staff, and administrators to work, learn, and play in a more suitable and comfortable educational and learning environment. New and improved facilities instill pride and a sense of ownership with members of our school communities. Increased retention and recruitment of highly qualified staff is a byproduct of well-maintained, efficient, and modern buildings and systems. We ask for your support on Senate Bill 450 so that our communities can continue to keep pace with the growing needs of our school districts. Thank you, and I appreciate your consideration and time.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 982. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Lisa Guzman, Lisaguzman, and I'm a trustee of the Clark County School District. I proudly represent District A. I am here today to speak in strong support of SB 450 as it will help the Clark County School District continue to address ongoing capital needs. This extension will go a long way toward helping to fix many issues within school buildings throughout the district. This will result in many up-to-date building environments so our students can focus on their assignments and our teachers can focus on their lesson plans instead of a leak in the restroom or lack of air conditioning. At CCSD, the safety and comfort of our staff and students is of paramount importance. Replacing 33 schools in the heart of Southern Nevada not only ensures this, but also ensures that a sense of community is kept intact for the families in these historical neighborhoods. On top of that, the ability to be able to build new schools would help with overcrowding as our valley continues to grow. This provides much needed relief for our staff and enables our students to get the personalized instruction they need in order to succeed. Thank you to all stakeholders in our community who came today to express support for this proactive measure to address the needs of our students, staff, and community. It shows that education only works when the community comes together to support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 849. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening, Chair Dondera Loop and members of the committee. My name is Jen Blackhurst, JENN BLACKHURST, and I am representing Hope for Nevada, a nonprofit education advocacy organization of over 1,000 members. Hope is in support of SB 450 and would like to thank the authors of the bill for being proactive when it comes to the needs of our students. If you have had the opportunity to tune into a CCSD Bond Oversight Committee meeting, you would immediately recognize the difficulty in determining which capital needs should be prioritized, as the bond is only able to accommodate half of the construction and repairs that are needed. And this is just an example from one of the districts in the state. We are maxed out in capacity at hundreds of Nevada schools, which further taxes our buildings and equipment. Our children struggle to excel in overcrowded classrooms with non-working AC and heat, flooding, asbestos, pest control, and a myriad of other problematic circumstances each year. The ability to roll over districts' bonding capacity would provide the much-needed dollars to address these unsafe learning conditions, as well as the stability to address future planning. Thank you for your consideration, and we urge you to pass SB 450.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 626. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, this is Piper Overstreet, Piperoverstreet, registering support for SB 450 on behalf of the Las Vegas Urban Chamber of Commerce. New school construction and renovation of existing schools are vitally important to our growing community and to our vitally important to our local economy. We respectfully request the committee support of SB 450, echoing many of the comments that have been made in support of the bill earlier today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 469. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Andy Donahue, D-O-N-A-H-U-E, with the Labor Employers Cooperation and Education Trust. We support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 652. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Nick Vasiliadis, V-A-S-S-I-L-I-A-D-I-S, for the record, representing Local Carpenters 1977, here in support of this bill. Simply put, our members need work, and with kind of the limited focus that we've seen so far this session on jobs, we believe this bill is desperately needed, and we thank everybody who's come together to bring this forward. We urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 874. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening, Chair and committee members. My name is Rebecca Garcia, R-E-B-E-C-C-A, G-A-R-C-I-A, President of the Nevada Parent-Teacher Association. Nevada PTA supports SB 450 as a needed measure to ensure students and staff have safe and modern schools in which to learn. As our state grows, it is essential that new schools can be built to address chronically overcrowded classrooms and make certain aging schools are repaired or replaced to provide the best possible education environment for all students. Every public school student in Nevada should have access to facilities that meet their current needs in order to succeed. SB 450 provides districts with the ability to plan to address construction needs into the future, and we urge your support.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 062. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Sunny Binuya, S-O-N-N-Y, V-I-N-U-Y-A. I am the president of the Las Vegas Asian Chamber of Commerce. I am speaking on behalf of our chamber in support of SB 450. We support much-needed modernization of our schools, especially the schools mentioned that truly needs upgrades. We support building new schools. This is so needed to avoid overcrowding as our population continues to grow. And of course, we support jobs creation due to the projects. This will only help the community, especially as we recover from the economic effects of the pandemic. We need to support our children's education by providing them with the most updated and best facilities that we can. We urge for your yes vote. We urge for your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 210. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last three digits of 210, please press star 6 now to unmute yourself. We will skip to the next caller. Caller with the last three digits of 650. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Greetings, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Zach Bucher, Z-A-C-H, B like boy, U-C-H-E-R, representing the great city of Las Vegas. The city of Las Vegas is calling in support of Senate Bill 450, as this legislation will benefit our students and substantially assist in addressing school construction and maintenance needs in our community. Thank you, members, for your time and consideration today. Thank you, Madam Chair, and a good evening to everyone.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Those of you that recently just joined us, we are currently in support of SB 450. If you would like to testify in support, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits of 210. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Dondera Loop and members of the committee. My name is Mary Nakashima. That's M-A-R-I, Nakashima, N-A-K-A-S-H-I-M-A. And I'm calling on behalf of our client, the Washoe Principals and Administrators Association. We'd like to express our gratitude to Majority Leader Canizero and the many sponsors and presenters for bringing this important measure forward. We support the bill and believe investing in physical learning environments are critical for student achievement. Public education infrastructure in the form of campuses, schools, classrooms, technology, and ongoing maintenance are tangible demonstrations of the values we place on education. This bill continues a policy that publicly demonstrates our shared values of prioritizing our students. We're grateful for your time and urge the committee's support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Chair, you have no more callers in support at this time.
Thank you very much. Then we will move to opposition. Any opposition in the room? Seeing none, we'll go to the callers. Broadcasting, go ahead when you're ready.
If you would like to testify in opposition of SB 450, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits of 026. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Andrea Cole, A-N-D-R-E-A-C-O-L-E. And as a mom, a parent advocate, and founder of CCSD Parents, I'm calling in support of SB 450. Students and staff deserve to learn and teach in a safe, modern school buildings. Portables, as been mentioned, are supposed to be temporary, and overcrowded classrooms are not good for anyone. It's essential that new schools can be built to address the constantly overcrowded classrooms that our kids and teachers deal with, and make sure that aging schools are repaired or replaced to provide the best possible learning environment for all students. Every public school student in Nevada should have access to facilities that meet their needs. I urge you to support SB 450 to modernize and build schools to better serve our students and improve our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we'll go to opposition, excuse me. I think that's what we're in, broadcasting. Am I correct?
Yes, you are correct, Chair. We are currently in opposition. Again, if you would like to testify in opposition of SB 450, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits of 369. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Leonardo Amador, Leonardo. My apologies, but I wasn't able to get into the queue for the support, and I would like to show my support for SB 450. My name is Leonardo Amador. I'm principal. My name is Leonardo Amador, Leonardo. Last name Amador, A-M-A-D-O-R. Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm the proud principal of Montalvo Middle School that would be a great recipient of any of these funds that would come through to help us achieve what we really want to do with our students in regards to their student achievements. Over the past years, our students and teachers have stepped up to the plate to really show some growth in our academic gains. Yet we've seen some limitations due to the building that we currently have that was built in 1965. We are in desperate need of a new building, and the funds provided by SB 450 would definitely benefit all of us in that process so that we can continue to stay competitive academically with everybody in the district. Thank you, and I appreciate it, and if anybody else can support this as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller in opposition, please. Maybe.
Thank you, Chair. Again, we are currently in opposition of SB 450. If you would like to testify in opposition, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you very much. Then we will move to neutral. Anyone in the room in neutral? Not seeing anybody broadcasting. We'll go to the phone lines.
If you would like to testify neutral on SB 450, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify neutral on SB 450, please press star 9 now. Chair, you have no callers neutral at this time.
Thank you very much, broadcasting. And I'd just like to point out that we have engaged our communities because I have a whole page of people that listen to this testimony. So when we're worried about people not knowing what's going on here, I think they are listening, and I'm pleased to know that the communities are listening. Senator Canizero, any closing comments?
I just wanted to say thank you, Chair Dondero Loop and members of the committee for taking the time to hear this bill. It is an extremely important piece of legislation to make sure that we can keep our schools in the place where we want our students to be learning. And as a product of the public education system here, as I know many of my colleagues on this committee were, definitely proud to have been here with everyone who has spoken in support and supported this particular piece of legislation, not only this time, but also in previous legislative sessions where we have agreed to allow for this to continue so that we can continue to build and improve on our schools. And I would urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Majority Leader, and I'm willing to bet that there's 5 people at least up here that are public school people. So thank you very much, and thank you for your time today, and thanks to all of you here in the audience. And with that, I will close the hearing on Senate Bill 450. But I will also would like, while we're all here today, to take action on Senate Bill 450. So with that, I will take a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to pass.
Thank you very much. Vice Chair Orenshaw, do I have a second? A second from Senator Neal. And any discussion on the motion? Yes, Senator Gocochea, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm all about education. And, the comment was made about the White Pine New School in White Pine County. You have to understand that was completed in '95. Probably about the time you were born. So it doesn't take long for them to get old. I'm all about public education and the need to build the schools. Unfortunately, I just struggle with not having voter approval. This will be twice we've rolled it. And I would prefer the voters said yes or no. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Hansen.
Just say ditto to what my colleague just said. I'm all for education too. Washoe County Public Schools myself. I will say that I paid 32 years worth of tuition at Bishop Minogue for my 8 kids. While I was paying that, I was also paying all my property taxes too, though. So it wasn't like I wasn't supporting the public schools while they were going through high school. But again, we're talking, my math in my head is about $15 to $20 billion worth of spending potentially here. We literally just heard the bill. The bill was just dropped. with that kind of volume of dollars, I'm exceptionally uncomfortable with supporting a measure like that. So, and absolutely something of that magnitude, that is all going to be paid for with property taxes by somebody. So I think it should go back to the voters. I suspect with the quality of presentation that was delivered today, that they would be very influential as well with the voters. So I would bet it would pass, but I think it's irresponsible of us to ignore the fact that we made an agreement with the voters that they had a 20-year window max, and now we're going to extend it without their approval. So I'm a definite no. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Any additional comments? I would just point out that we heard from over 25 groups that called in support, and every one of those groups is not just one person. Every one of those groups can be hundreds of people, PTAs, Chamber of Commerce, cities, all from all over the state. And I would point out that all those people that called in just didn't represent themselves. They had to have the okay from their groups. So I do think our voters are aware, and I hope that this passes. Thank you very much. So with that, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed? I have a no from Senator Gocochea and Senator Hansen. Thank you very much. Motion passes, and thank you very much. And I'm sure the children of Nevada will thank you as well. Thank you, Senator. And with that, we also have one other item to put on the work session today, and that is Senate Bill 445 from Monday. And would Ms. Keller tell us about that bill?
Thank you, Chair Dondero Loop, Elisa Keller, Committee Policy Analyst. A work session document for Senate Bill 445 is available on Nellis. And Senate Bill 445 is sponsored by the Senate Committee on Finance on behalf of the Office of Finance and the Office of the Governor, and was heard by this committee at its last meeting on May 17th. As the committee will recall, Senate Bill 445 makes several revisions related to the State Purchasing Act. And after the hearing, Kevin Doty, the administrator of the Purchasing Division, proposed a conceptual amendment which is included in the work session document. The proposed amendment revises Section 3 of the bill to provide that the administrator may suspend or debar a person from eligibility to submit a bid or proposal on or be awarded a contract if the administrator determines that the person knowingly provided false or misleading information, entered into a contract and materially failed to perform according to the terms of the contract, or violated any provision of this chapter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee? Senator Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I had heard that the Purchasing Division had an additional amendment on sub 4. Section 3, sub 4. I don't know if he's on the Zoom.
Mr. Doty, please.
Good evening, Chair Dondero Loop, members of the committee. I am Kevin Doty, Administrator for State Purchasing. I don't have any additional proposed changes to the language. The one I've submitted is the one we have right now. But I understand that there are suggestions from to make significant changes to Section 4 of subsection 4 of Section 3 of the bill.
So you didn't agree with those changes for the appeal, to be able to appeal the debarment?
Kevin Doty, for the record, thank you for the question, Senator. Yes, I do agree with the suggestion to be able to appeal the debarment. It's the conceptual amendment I saw on that was very lengthy, and I didn't know that we would have time to get that done this late in the session. And that's my concern. I'm certainly amenable to having an appeal set forth clearly in the record and to have the administrator promulgate regulations regarding how this will take place.
Okay, so I just wanted to ask about it, but if you're saying that you're going to try to do something in regs, I mean, we are running out of time. I mean, so we're almost out of this process. I just wanted to bring it up because I wanted to know.
Thank you very much. Vice Chair Earnshaw?
Thank you very much, Chair Dondero Loop. And I'm going to be supporting the bill out of committee. I am, troubled by the deletion of the language in Section 4 about placing the bids in a newspaper of general circulation. I feel like, the notice needs to be robust as possible. And I hope that there can be a possible further amendment to correct that, because I think that, at this time where our state is, I think that, more notice is better than less. And even though there's a cost to that notice, I think that it's really something that the public expects and that we need. But I will be voting it to support it out of committee, reserving my right to change on the floor.
Thank you very much. Senator Gocochea?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to oppose it at this point. I just think it's too wide open yet. It does need an appeal process. I'm sorry, I trust you, but you might not be there next year, and I'm afraid somebody with a little hammer could be awful tough. So at this point, I hope we can continue to work the bill, but I will be voting no.
Thank you very much. Any additional comments? I'm a little bit, Mr. Doty, we've had quite a bit of discussion, I know, about not posting this in a paper or someplace. I think we need to remember that we have a lot of, even in Clark County, rural communities that may depend on those avenues to get their information. So I would like to vote it out in committee, but I would like to continue to have that conversation as well. So with that, I'll accept a motion.
Move amended, do pass, Chair.
Thank you very much. A second? Second from Senator Neal. And any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? Nays from Senator Gocochea and Senator Hansen. Motion passes. Thank you very much, and we look forward to having further conversation with you, Mr. Doty. Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, I think all we have left is public comment, and here they come. Let's go. Welcome.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Lindsay Anderson on behalf of the Washoe County School District. You may not know, but in the Senate Education Committee, Dr. Keating and I give a good news minute to the extent possible to talk about the amazing things happening in our public school system. And since we're here today in this esteemed committee, we could not pass up that opportunity despite the late hour. I have a quick one, but a good one. Kindergartners in Michelle Hampton's distance learning class, a COVID program at Pulakitas Elementary School, which is one of our new elementary schools, won the PBS Compassion Writing Contest this year, covering the area of Northern California and Nevada. They were selected among over 2,000 essays. Ms. Hampton says the theme of compassion hits home with their class as they unexpectedly lost a classmate over winter break, and the students, families, and school and community came together to support that classmate's family. So we are very proud of the kindergartners at Pulakitas Elementary School. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Love those kindergartners. Thank you. Mr. Keating.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brad Keating for the record, representing Clark County School District. With a good news minute here for this committee. Wanted to mention a student, Trayless Dyson IV. His friends call him Trey because it's shorter. His family calls him Q, short for quad because he's the fourth Trayless Dyson. Now he's known across the Las Vegas Valley as the high school student with a 5.037 GPA who got accepted into 59 colleges and earned over $2.5 million in scholarship offers. Dyson, he's 17 years old from Shadow Ridge High School, will attend the University of Southern California this fall. We're proud of him and all the students graduating in the coming weeks, and we want to thank each of you for supporting our students to get to this finish line. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations to both of those sets of students. Thank you. Anybody else with public comment on broadcasting?
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to speak in public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to speak in public comment, please press star 9 now. Chair, you have no callers wishing to speak in public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, with that, we will adjourn. I can't promise you we won't have another meeting, but we'll see. And with that, we're adjourned. Thank you very much for all your participation.